Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I will be presenting to you a PowerPoint presentation which I have worked very hard on, which I hope you appreciate. Graphic design is my passion, so I really hope it comes through in this. My presentation today is why artillery in World of Tanks need to be removed. This is the result of me being stunned 9 times in one game, and losing almost all of my health to a singular SU-8, who I never saw nor got the chance to engage the entire game. We'll be going over some of the arguments in favor of keeping artillery in the game, and some arguments in favor of removing artillery from the game. So first of all, we're going to hear some real arguments from real artillery players who I have included in this presentation on why artillery should not be removed from the game and should be kept. Now let's hear what they have to say. So the arguments against from real artillery players, as you can see, we have a collection of them here. Their first argument would be that it prevents camping. That's not true. Their argument would be that due to artillery being in the game, being able to hit you if you stay in cover, it encourages you to move from your position to avoid being hit by artillery. The problem with that they fail to consider is that artillery cannot only hit stationary targets. Artillery can hit moving targets. And artillery can hit moving targets much easier when they are not in some form of cover, which is what leads to players sticking to buildings, sticking against cliffs, mountains, to stay in artillery cover, thereby increasing the average amount of camping you see in a match. Now, I don't have the graph here, but it's a lot more. There's a lot more camping. You're just going to have to trust me. God told me I was right. This leads very well into my next point, or their next point, which I will dispute, about how it encourages faster play. Artillery players would argue that being in the game, them being in the game that is, encourages tanks to move around more, and it leads to a less static style of play. Now, we've already disputed that. However, this may lean more specifically towards encouraging lights and mediums to move around more, to avoid being hit by artillery, because they're more vulnerable. Now, by preventing them from camping, because if they camp, they get hit, it encourages a more fluid style of gameplay. Now, that's not true, because, ironically, lights and mediums suffer the most at the hands of artillery in a certain sense. Now, lights and mediums on average are going to have a lot less armor than heavy tanks. So, if an artillery piece does hit a light tank, it is more likely to deal a massive amount of that vehicle's health in damage. Whereas if a heavy tank gets pinned down and plinked to death by artillery, it'll be 200, 300 damage a shot. If an AMX 1375 gets caught in the wrong place by artillery, you're just going to die. There's no possible argument here from artillery players that makes any sense about how it could possibly reduce the amount of camping. Now, we're going to hear some arguments against. Sorry. I've mixed up my words. Artillery players are the ones against. We're going to hear some arguments in favor of artillery being removed from the game, and I really think you should listen to what these people have to say. These people being me. It's really fucking annoying. It's really annoying. It's awful. As you can see here in the screenshot to the bottom right of the screen, that was the game where I got murdered by an SU-8. I was stunned for over a minute. I was stunned 9 times. And as you can see, other tanks that took advantage of that being stunned did 400 or so damage. The rest of my health was lost from getting bashed in the forehead over and over again from an SU-8's high explosive shells. And it doesn't matter if I try to move. It doesn't matter if I stay in cover. Because if I stay in cover, I'm not playing the game. But if I try to move, I get hit by artillery. It's really fucking annoying. As you can see, this other player here, not myself, who was in a Defender, lost every single point of health to an artillery firing. This is the most despicable thing. Firing premium ammunition at him. Not just an artillery player, but an artillery player spamming premium. I mean, I feel a little sick just saying that sentence. So that's the first point in favor of removing artillery. The second one would be that artillery is dogshit gameplay. It's fucking awful. If you've ever tried to play artillery, you know how miserable it is. 1 in 10 games, you'll get that magical, oh my god, I can't believe I hit that shot, instant kill. But every other game, 1 in 2 shots you fire hits. And then on every hit, you do a couple hundred damage, and you stun the bastard for the next 10 seconds. 20 if, it's you're just a fucking monster, and 5 if they've got the right equipment. There's nothing fun about artillery gameplay. You just sit at the back of the map, have absolutely no impact on whether your team wins or loses. You're a vulture. You just pick off lonely, unlucky vehicles and do nothing. That's all it is. It's utterly miserable. And you can see the kind of gameplay these people encourage. And if you ever get close to an artillery player and you're not in artillery and they're not on your team, they barely even notice you. They're just glued into their little top-down view, just plinking away at some poor bastard tank. And it's miserable. It is utterly miserable. The only excuse for playing artillery is if you're whacking off with your left hand and you want to do something with your right. That is the only scenario in which a human being should be caught playing artillery. Third point, there is no counterplay. What the fuck am I supposed to do? I can't see them. I don't know where they are. I can't really find out where they are. Sure, I can see their tracer, but the tracer only starts when the shell's already about 100 meters off the ground. So unless I'm pulling off some CSI shit in the middle of a firefight, which isn't fucking happening, let me make that clear, I don't know where they are. I can tell you the rough 300-meter area he's firing from, but I can't fire back. In the past in World of Tanks, artillery had to worry about counter battery because your tracer was visible from the moment you fired. So if enemy artillery was on the ball and you kept firing from the same place and you didn't move, they didn't have to see you, they didn't have to spot you, they could know exactly where you were and put you down. And that was good. Now, it wasn't brilliant because it was still artillery gameplay, right? Both people involved in that scenario are artillery. But it was better than just whatever the fuck we have now. My next point, I don't like it. It kind of leads into my next 2 points. I don't like artillery. I don't like getting hit by artillery. I don't like getting beaten to death very slowly. You ever seen that video that came out like 10 years ago about that fucking serial killer who just kills people with spoons? It takes like 10 fucking years. That is artillery. That's what it's like. I hate it. My final point here is that God came to me in a dream and told me that we should remove artillery from the game. Now, there is an argument to be made that if you did remove artillery from the game, a lot of people would be very upset, those people being artillery players, because some of them will have tier 10 artillery. They will have spent hundreds of hours playing artillery. I mean, what the fuck? Just to get to the top of the line. And that's, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of points of experience, millions of credits, hundreds of hours of their life, which they've spent to get to that point. And some people have premium artillery, like what we see, the LFF on screen there. These are premium artillery. They have paid real money in order to obtain these artillery pieces. Now, there is a historical precedent for taking things away from people because it was fucked up that they owned them. Ladies and gentlemen,
in 1863, when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, did he say to every slave owner in the South that he was going to compensate them for what they lost? He did not. He did not say that. He said, fuck you, I'm taking your slaves away, you piece of shit. And I tell you what, we should do the same fucking thing to everybody in World of Tanks who thinks they can sit there, flicking on their ass with one thumb on their cock and check it off. It's not fucking right. Abraham Lincoln told you it's not right. I'm telling you right here, right now, it's not right. God told me to kill you. God told me to kill you in your house. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna come to your fucking house. I'm gonna hit you with a hammer until you